So Steve's a certified coach and a published author. In fact, his book, Stop Waiting for Permission, hits bookstores today, and I love that title. And you might also recognize Steve from television. He's a reporter for KNBC, and he's been on Discovery and the National Geographic Channel. And so I'm delighted to welcome Steve to explore how we can maximize relationships and contribute to our growth. So, Steve.
Thank you very much, Martha. Very good job.
Thank you.
I'll give you a 10.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, everybody, that was good, but you can do better. Ready? Everybody, Steve Truitt! Oh, thank you. Thank you. And Martha already did it, but I'm sending out a special shout out to the cheap seats. Hi, everybody. How are you doing? Yeah, they're waving. I love it. Still here. Very good. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be here to speak with you and to moderate the panel. So, why am I here? A television host, a public speaker, a life coach, an author. What can I contribute? The thing that I do the best is that I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. I tell stories. Whether it's a joke or it's a sad tale or it's an anecdote, stories move and they touch and they inspire people. I love telling them, especially when someone's moved, touched, and inspired toward taking action. It's something that I call being in the conversation. What does that mean? Well, being in the conversation means I want to take an action, and so I'm going to put it out there in reality through language. I'm going to remind everybody that this is what I'm up to. This is what I'm doing. I think I'm going to go run a marathon next year. That's my conversation. So I get a coach, and my coach is going to help me. He's going to remind me while we're in the same conversation together, get out there and run 5 miles tomorrow. Make sure by next week you've done 15. Being in the conversation. What's another example of a conversation? How about the power of one? What's the one thing that you can do to improve your productivity, your performance, your life, your happiness? That's what being in the conversation means. And you can't do it alone. Sure, you can have the conversation with yourself, but people will think you're nuts. You're walking down the street, you're talking to yourself. That's what Bluetooth is for. It means involving other people, engaging other people, enrolling other people in your ideas and your thoughts and your actions, and inspiring them as well to accomplish that goal. So what is the conversation that PwC is having? It's this: delivering the firm. Delivering the firm. What does that mean? Well, it means creating, enhancing, nurturing, and developing high-value relationships. Relationships that aren't just, hi, I want your business. Hi, I want your account. But knowing people, maybe knowing them before you have the business, creating relationships long before any kind of business relationship is established. Having a high-value relationship encompasses everything that can result in having a tremendous relationship with a client. So in order to get that point across, we're going to do something a little different, as Martha mentioned this year. We're going to have a panel. We're going to have a discussion panel. We're not going to be talking at you. We're going to be talking with each other and with you, discussing the points and the ideas that we've come up with. And it's a good panel. It's a good cross-section of 4 different lines of service from here at PwC. Jill Tregillis-Bacon, Kat Mead, Mark Perkillo, and Andrea will be up here in just a few minutes. And we're also going to be answering some questions that were submitted a little bit earlier. But I want to give you another example of a really great conversation that started good and got great. In 1961, when John F. Kennedy said, we're going to go to the moon, NASA freaked out. They didn't even know how they were going to get there. And he said, we need to do it by the end of the decade. 9 years, 8.5. They hadn't even gotten a man into orbit yet. And Kennedy said, we're going to land a man on the moon and bring him home safely. So their first thought was, okay, let's build a giant rocket. We'll call it the Nova Project. That's what they called it. And it'll be a 400-foot tall rocket, just full of gas. And we're going to send it up to the moon, and we'll put a couple guys on the top of it, and we'll land this giant rocket on the moon, and then we'll have them go down, scoop up some rocks, get back into the rocket, fly home, detach the little capsule, and bring them back safely. And that was the idea that NASA had. But they knew that it couldn't possibly work for them to meet their deadline. They couldn't build, design, and engineer that kind of rocket within 9 years. Getting to the moon is all about weight, and they knew that. And while they weren't necessarily considering other ideas, they were secretly open for options. And that was when a guy named John Hubble, a mid-level, small-time engineer at NASA who wasn't even working on the moon project, who in his spare time read Russian scientific journals for fun, right? Stumbled across a scientific journal from a Russian in 1916, which recommended something called lunar orbit rendezvous. Take the pieces up separately, mate them in orbit, land a small craft on the moon, come back, come home, small craft home. It was a great idea, but NASA couldn't possibly imagine doing something like that because the engineering hadn't even been thought of. And John Hubble was silenced for a while. But he kept at it. He was committed. His conversation was, we're going to the moon. That's what Kennedy said. I want to get there. I'm in the conversation. Just like he is, just like you are, just like NASA is. And he kept writing proposals, and he kept writing proposals until someone finally saw it. And that someone was the head of NASA at the time, a guy named Siemens. And this tiny little idea that never had a chance of making it, lunar orbit rendezvous, 8 months later was selected by NASA as the way to go to the moon. And this insignificant scientist, John Hubble, became the man who got us to the moon in 9 years. That's a conversation. That's a great example of a small conversation and someone owning it and bringing it into the forefront and making something happen. So for PwC, the conversation starts and ends with you. And I want you to consider this quote: "The strength of our relationships with the clients is based on the strength of the relationship that we have with each other." I'd like to now bring up the first member of our panel. She loves Diet Coke. She's a big fan of Pearl Jam. Oh, she's also the audit engagement partner here at PwC. Her name is Jill Tregellis-Bacon. Give her a hand, please. Hello, panelists. Take a seat.
Thank you for that introduction.
You're welcome. Thank you. That first video was all about relationships.
Yeah.
All about how the impact of relationships.
But another thing is, we went out there and I didn't go alone. Okay, they don't let me do anything alone, which is a great mantra. Never do anything alone. I brought my tax partner from Edison, and he knows a lot about renewable credits and all that kind of stuff. And he offered them a free tax diagnostic and found them money on day one. I mean, like right there. He went out the next day, did a free diagnostic, and found them a bunch of money, right? And then they listen to this.
I'm listening.
They
I have no choice.
I know. They kick out Deloitte.
Yeah.
Deloitte, right?
Deloitte, everybody.
Deloitte. Kick them out.
Can't believe it.
And they hire, yeah, right?
Yeah, big hand for
They're
kicking out
gone.
Deloitte.
Yeah. And they hire us for the compliance and consulting before they even sign the audit engagement letter.
Brilliant. Give her a hand.
Thank you.
Come on. So I want to take a look at the second.
I really do this job for my clients and for the people that work for me and work with me, but really the ones I'm responsible for mentoring and coaching. And to see them grow and mature and develop, or to help them, is sort of what energizes me. And I'm lucky that way because I'm in client service, and that's a nice attribute to have. And to the extent that you find yourself not practicing empathy, I ask you to think about what's the other side thinking. Can you put yourself in their shoes? Can you try to look at something from a different perspective? And there's an infinite number of perspectives, and you're not going to get them all. But if you try to expand yourself, I find that confrontation is generally bonding.
So we went in there and we did a very extensive study covering over 15 years, and we were able to conclude that the company's operating losses of approximately 100 million were good losses and can be used in the future years.
And I will say that this was Rentec's first profitable quarter.
I guess, Mark, I want to ask you, how can participating in clubs and other professional organizations or non-professional organizations really help establish key relationships, do you think?
Well, it's really interesting. I mean, for myself, I like to do a bunch of things in the community, and one of the things that I do is I coach my little girls' AYSO soccer team. And wouldn't you know it, 2 years in a row, two of the parents on my team, my kids' teams, are clients of PwC. And it starts out fun. you cordial, and then after the end of the season, you start getting invited to their Christmas parties and those types of things, and you start talking about the firm, and it's really fun, and I was proud, I think they were proud that I was part of our firm. And
So, Kat, is it ever too early to invest in relationships?
I think absolutely not. I mean, especially at the level of when you're on the ground, you're the eyes and ears of the client, you're interacting with the client on a daily basis and representing PwC. Just a story that comes to mind, I had a bank client who used Accenture to the tune of about $80 million a year. We really wanted to break in there. There was obviously a large wallet. We were given one shot based on Accenture usual, give them a proposal that's astronomically high, and they got a little angry. So they said, well, come on in and you have a shot. So we went into this client, we started doing a pretty complex assessment, and we quickly realized it was a difficult client. There were a lot of moving parts. It was a highly technical piece of work. We were able to really work hand in hand with our team on the ground. I mean, we went to status meetings, we met offline, we got to know some of the clients, especially the people in the trenches, through our people on the ground. And that definitely gave us an edge when it came to heading off problems of the past, understanding what was important to different people and empowering them. We came through that with flying colors, and we were able to win about a 2.5-year project after that, and Accenture was persona non grata at that point. So.
I have a question that was submitted to me a couple of weeks ago when we started this whole project. I put it out there that people could submit questions, and some of you did. So I have one question that I want to read, and I want all the panel to comment on it, if you would, please. What advice do you have for staff to feel like we can contribute to creating relationships?
I think the Rentec example is a perfect example of enhancing value. By us knowing our client well and knowing their business, knowing what they had and what they needed, we were able to offer them the Section 382 study. Gary went out there and spent the time to learn about their tax attributes, and he realized that this study was something that would be tremendously beneficial to them, or could be, depending on the results of our study. And I mean, it is.
But information that they needed.
Yes,
right?
It is information that they needed, and the result is that they will be able to save a lot of cash on their future tax expenses. So this was, I think, a project that delivered a lot of value to the client.
And
I think it goes back to the point I just made. In my role, I'm a relationship broker. My job is to know the client, know what they're trying to accomplish, know the people, in a lot of cases, how they're measured. So I think that, our associates and staff have a huge opportunity to be the eyes and the ears of the client.
sometimes when you feel like no one has said thank you, maybe you should just go say thank you to someone else. Because there's a lot of days where I don't feel like I'm being appreciated. And the way that I kind of get over that feeling is by appreciating someone else. So I really wanted to, in fact, I was trying to make you change your entire speech, if you recall,
I
to
did.
empower.
Several times, actually.
To empower everyone to think about, if you feel like this firm doesn't appreciate you, just remember you're the firm,
6 good PFFs gets you a soccer ball, I think.
or a
That's
pair of
it.
shoes.
We're going to leave it at that. I want to
Yeah.
thank you all for the panel. Give them a big hand. They were fantastic. Jill, Mark, Andrea, and Kat, you did great. Very good job. We're all here to create relationships. This is not about sales. It's about creating relationships. And to have them, you've got to obviously relate to somebody else. One of my favorite quotes is from Margaret Wheatley. It is, relationships are all there is. Everything in the universe only exists because it's in relationship to everything else. Nothing exists in isolation. We have to stop pretending we are individuals that can go it alone. And when you're faced with this challenge and this opportunity to be in this conversation of delivering the firm, don't ask yourself, what do I have to do? You're just going to get stressed out. Instead, ask yourself, what is my desired outcome? What am I here to achieve? And in the world of success, don't make your context for success survival, just making it. Instead, take on what you have to let go of to have success. Because if your conversation is something that's not serving you, maybe that's what you need to let go of to make it happen. And as my coach always said to me, I have my doubts, but they don't have me. And I want to leave you this one last thought. You are one powerful conversation away from achieving everything you want to achieve in your life. So give yourself the permission to create and start that conversation. Thank you very much. Have a great year, everybody. Thank you again to the panel. You guys were terrific. Oh, look at you. You're remembering your microphone.